I'd like to thank our sponsors, Blood Moon Box, a monthly subscription box service for period pads and tampons to help support all humans who have a cycle for that time of the month, and no need to run to a store to mix and match period supplies that don't cater to the entire ebbs and flows of your cycle. There are 2 box options based on your cycle, light and medium, and then heavy. And in addition to the period products, you'll also receive PMS herbal teas, a candle, and some other items for your time of the month. You can reserve a box by navigating to bloodmoonbox.com. And bloodmoonbox.com is on a mission to destigmatize the idea of period blood. At Blood Moon Box, they believe that it is the time to honor the enchanting magic within every person who has a cycle. So join us in embracing the magic of your cycle with Blood Moon Box. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's show is about human design and how we can be more effective leaders and be in alignment with our life path when we understand our design. And on this show, we'll be featuring our guest, Lauren Armstrong, who is a highly skilled human design guide who went through the International Human Design School and has earned certifications through various other renowned institutions in NLP, time techniques, clinical hypnotherapy, reiki, and trauma-informed practices. And in human design speak, Lauren is a 5/1 self-projected projector, and she has a unique perspective on the world and excels in talking things out, creating offers based on her areas of expertise, and solving problems for others. And on her website, laurenarmstrong.com, you can find valuable resources and information about the benefits of human design. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat about my favorite topic in the whole world, human design today.
Amazing. Likewise, I love this subject so much. And we actually both got introduced through our dear friend, Sarah Tulin. So thank you, Sarah Tulin, for connecting us. So Lauren, just to kick it off, what exactly is human design? Where did it come from, and why do you think this is important?
Yeah, so human design is a combination between ancient systems and modern science. So we have the Chinese I Ching, the chakra system, the Kabbalah tree of life, astrology, quantum physics, genetics, and biochemistry. And it's basically giving us a map, a blueprint to our unique energy system based on the science of neutrinos at the time of our birth. So where the system came from, the synthesis of all of these systems came from was it was actually channeled in the 80s by a guy named Ra Uru, and he was in Ibiza, which sounds like totally woo and off the map. And if that's something that kind of freaks you out a little bit, hearing oh gosh, it's channeled, I would invite in what would it look like to play with it and hear a little bit about your design and see if it serves you. Because that is what I have found when people kind of question okay, wait, where did this come from? Once you start experimenting with and playing with, oh my gosh, this is my energy system, this is how I was wired, it feels so true. So that's what I would invite in.
I love that. Yeah, it makes sense because I think I've been a student of human design for about 5 years, and it really feels like there's something really profound and deep to all the different, gates and energy centers and the types of human design. So before we get, a little bit deeper into human design, let's actually talk about the types, from manifestor all the way to reflector. What are they? What are they known for? And why should we kind of pay attention to each of them?
Yeah. So what human design does as a typing system is it takes all of this deep information. There are over 2 billion configurations of human design with all these little elements as a part of your chart. And what the typing, functionality is basically rolling all of those up into overarching aura types. So because of certain things in your design, you're going to end up in one of 5 different aura types. Well, technically there's 4 aura types, but 5 types, which we'll go into that in a little bit. But so of the 5 types, there is a projector, and this is about 20% of the population. And the projectors are really here to be the leaders, the advisors, the guides. They're here to lead other people's energy. If you are a projector in human design, and the way that you find that out is by pulling your human design chart and entering in your birth information. When you find out if you're a projector, when you're in alignment, you're going to feel really successful in life, like deep success. And that's an internal feeling, not an external validation, right? And when you're out of alignment, you're going to feel really deeply bitter. So your signposts for life and operating correctly from your design as a projector would be successful if you're feeling, in alignment, and bitter if you're quote unquote out of alignment. Okay, so that's the projector. Then we have the generator, and the generator is here to have energy to do the work they love to do. They're deeply creative. The generators are here to master things. And when they're in alignment, they're going to feel really deeply satisfied. And when they're out of alignment, they're going to feel frustrated. So you know that you're like on track, doing your thing, living your design when you're feeling deeply satisfied. You lay your head on the bed at the end of the day and you're like, oh, that was deeply satisfying and I'm exhausted. And you're out of alignment when you're feeling frustration. And so you get to kind of tweak some things within there. Then we have our manifester. Our manifester is forceful, impactful energies. They're here to initiate, they're here to get things started. And when they're in alignment, they're going to feel deeply peaceful. And when they're out of alignment, they're going to feel angry. So when we're operating by their design as a manifester, peace; out of alignment with design, anger. Then we have a manifesting generator, which actually goes under the generator aura type, but is a little bit of a combination between the generator and the manifester. And the manifesting generator has that energy like a generator does, the energy and life force to create deeply satisfying work. And it also has an element of the manifester where they're here to inform kind of what's going on and who is impacted by their work. So you're here to be deeply passionate, multi-passionate, and efficient. Like our manifesting generators in the world are super quick, really fast-paced. Are you willing to share that you are a manifesting generator?
Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to share any part of my chart that feels relevant. But yeah, I am an
Okay.
MG.
Yeah. Does that all feel relevant to you? I know you've been in the world for quite
Oh,
some time. Yeah.
yes. When someone first told me about the manifesting generator and how we're supposed to also be kind of looking at different things at the same time, and that's actually how we find our energy is having multiple things. Because for a lot of a lot of my life, at least, it's felt like people have told me focus on one thing, go deep into just one thing, and that didn't feel accurate to me. I really liked to play with different worlds. So I felt quite relieved, when I had that experience of recognizing that the manifesting generator does live life with a lot of open tabs.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And when you're in alignment and doing that, allowing yourself to have those open tabs, you're going to feel that deep success, or excuse me, satisfaction, the way that the generator does. But also there's an element of peace there. It's that satisfaction and
Mm.
peace. And when you're out of alignment, you're going to have that frustration or anger. So those are kind of your signposts, like, hey, things are working out, or I need to tweak something. Um, and then for our reflector friends, which is about 1% of the population, they are here to take in everything in their environment and mirror it back. And when they're in alignment, they are, surprised and delighted. And when they're out of alignment, they're deeply disappointed. And it's really important for those reflector friends to be in communities and spaces that value their unique perspective. So those are like the kind of, roll up types in a nutshell. And I just want to kind of focus on a little bit even deeper than that human design tells us how we're designed to interact with the world around us. It's like the science of differentiation. And what's so cool about this system is, like you were just saying, right? Someone told you, okay, well, you really need to focus on something, but that works for that person. It doesn't work for everyone. And so what I love about human design is being able to take things with a grain of salt that come in and people telling you the way that they think you should be. And you get to actually come back to yourself as the authority of your life, as the decision maker, as the knowing what's best for you. And having human design is like this map on how to best use your energy, how to experiment and interact with life. And it's not a belief system. It's not a psychic reading. It's not even a personality assessment where you're answering questions of like what you think, you are. It's like, no, this is how you are programmed to be. And what would it look like to come back to self versus thinking you need to be a different or better way.
Totally. I love that. And I think, like you said, it's like for me, it felt like the blueprint for how to work well with my energy and how to work well with other people's energy, especially in community or groups or partnership, and just kind of knowing how people operate. And it's so funny. I'm sure that you could do this now, but when I meet someone for the first time, I can kind of like grok
Yeah.
what type they are, and also like what kind of energy centers they have defined, which we'll go
Yeah.
into in a little bit. It's so interesting how people's energy runs just differently, right? And
Yeah.
so let's actually, before we go into the 9 centers,
Mhm.
I'd love to talk about the profile numbers. Like we mentioned in the intro that you were a 1-5, I'm a 2-4. Can you say a little bit more about what these numbers mean?
Yeah. Okay. So, this is like one of my favorite parts of design is this profile numbers because there's I'm like going to say that about every part. I love geeking out about this. Okay. So, there's the 5 types, right? Which is like the roll up of individual parts about our design and the way that our aura operates. So, for example, a projector's aura is penetrating, a generator and a manifesting generator's is open and enveloping, a manifestor's is closed, a reflector's is reflective. Like that's the way that our energy bodies look and interact with the world. But our profile numbers are a little bit more of like our personalities and kind of like the clothes we wear to do the work we're here to do. And it's the way we kind of move through the world. So, for example, if we look at the lines, we can look at 1 through 6 are the line, activations. And you can have, one line is conscious and one line is unconscious. So for example, I'm a 5-1. So my 5, the first number is conscious for me, and the 1 is unconscious for me. So being able to tap into the 5 is my personality. The 5 is something that I can recognize in myself. The 5 represents a marketer, a problem solver, somebody who's, here to be a heretic and stand for something and stand against something else. Like all of those elements are something that I can recognize in myself. Then I look at the 1, which is unconscious to me. And the 1 is an investigator. It's a researcher. It's someone who likes deep foundational knowledge before they go and share what the answer is. And so to me, to being able to be like, oh, this is why I crave depth, research, certifications, et cetera, et cetera. Like you can look at what are your motivations? What do you see in yourself? What do others see in you? And really the combination of those numbers, I love to play with from a marketing standpoint. Like this is what we look at it in human design for business. It's the way you market yourself is leveraging those natural personality traits and the way that you move through the world. So for you, the 2 is the easy breezy genius. You're the natural, you're the hermit. So you might really love like some alone time to like be in your process and kind of wait for the call that is likely going to come from, since you're 4th line unconsciously, your network, people in your world. Like you're here to be an opportunist, have the network, have opportunities come to you through people through referrals, through affiliates. Does that all like kind of land for you and your experiment?
Well, it's so funny because you came to me through my network.
Exactly. I was
Which
like,
is,
let's tell that story. Yeah.
it's funny because even for this show, I've done almost 200 interviews, and almost everything in my life has often come to me. I don't go usually looking for things. The podcast
Yeah.
came to me, my guests usually come to me, and it's really cool because I know if it doesn't come through my network, then I'm like, if I'm forcing it, maybe it's out of alignment sometimes. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because as a manifesting generator, your strategy is to respond to life. So you're getting opportunities. They're likely coming through your network. You get to respond, yes or no, based on your sacral authority, right? So I'm going like into the depths here. But like every type, like when we look at our human design, we look at our type, our strategy, and our authority. And then like that's how we move through the world. And then our profile lines can come in to be like, okay, now how do we leverage this? How do we like tap into our genius? And there's so many more elements there as well. So I would love to share like you as a 2-4 and our friend Sarah Tulin, who we were talking about in the beginning, she is also a 4th line, which is all about networking and connections. And so Sarah was going to do this podcast and she like something came up. So she recommended or referred 4th line referral, referred me a projector who she knows and who's in her network. And she recognized and invited me to connect to you. Like, it's
Right.
just all of our our designs at play in real life, and that's what's just so fun. It's you get to watch it unfold. You don't have to consciously do your design.
Amazing. So cool. So, do you want to keep going on the numbers? We were at 2-4.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just do like all 6 of them. If we could just do like some keynotes of them and then
Okay.
play with where we want to go from there. So if we look at our profile numbers, so you're going to have a combination of 2 profile numbers, right? One is the conscious side and one is unconscious, but it's going to be numbers 1 through 6. So the first line, that's you're an investigator, you're a researcher. It's like loving that deep foundational knowledge. So, first lines are also very bold. If we want to look at it from a marketing perspective, how can you stand in like your truth and your knowledge and be a beacon of like an expert? So, that is very first line. First lines usually have a ton of certifications. They've gone to school, they maybe have like a PhD or a master's, right? Like it's like first lines love to learn. So, that's line 1. Line 2 is that hermit, that easy breezy genius, that natural. You are going to be really naturally brilliant at things that you likely think everyone can do. So if you're a 2 line, I would just really invite in this energy of what am I great at? What if people told me that I'm great at that I kind of like don't think I'm great at because I never had to learn it? That is your natural ability. That is your skill set. That is like something that ease is meant for you. So if it isn't easy, I would actually start to question it and come back to what's easy for me, what is natural for me. You're also known as the hermit. So you might need that alone time. And that could be with another person, maybe a spouse, or it could just be simply like being alone, kind of like in your cave hermit vibes, like giving yourself space. Can be really important for a 2. Would you want to comment on any of that, Yasmin,
Yeah, I
as a
mean,
2?
that definitely feels right. Like, I think a lot of people think I'm extremely extroverted, which I am because I've got that 4. And at the same
Hmm.
time, I really do crave and need my alone time. It's usually where I get my greatest inspiration. So I find myself, if I spend too much time with a group, I need to, kind of go off on my own and
Absolutely.
reconnect. Yeah.
It's like I love that oscillating, like everything in design. There's always, you know, duality in a chart. It's like I love alone time, but also I'm a fourth line, networker. So it's like everyone has a little bit of this and that in the chart that they get to play with. Um, but third lines are the trial and errorists. You are here to bump into life. You're here to experiment. You're here to try something, maybe fail, get the information and try something different. Like you're the pivoters. I love watching third lines, especially in business, because they are trying something new. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. They get a new piece of information and then they try something else. Like third lines is very much like trial and error energy, which is awesome to watch. You're also very brilliant, usually storytellers, and bringing in humor into if you have a business or a brand, like making light of life is really, you know, inviting for third lines. Like people want to be in it with you versus some of the other profile lines could benefit from like a little bit of distance from their lessons. Taking people along with you for the ride is really endearing for third lines. Like, oh, trying this is what worked, this is what didn't, keep going, versus having to wait to get it all right. Fourth lines, we have, right, those networkers, those opportunists. Like you are here, like the whole saying, like your network is your net worth is very true for fourth lines. You're the friend, you're here to go deep with people. Oftentimes fourth lines don't love, surface level conversations. Like, don't tell me about the weather, I'm gonna die. Like that's like kind of the fourth line vibe of like, let's go deep, let's talk about our fears, let's talk about our dreams, like let's get in there. And they're here to be that friend, work through their network. Does that all resonate for you as well,
Oh, yeah,
Yasmin?
big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
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 And it's so fun because like opportunities are likely to come to you through your network. Like when I see a lot of fourth lines, like spending a lot of time on social media, for example, like putting out content for the masses, it's like, how is that actually working for you? Because likely it isn't
Yeah.
the most,
Yeah. Not
successful thing you could do.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I've got, a couple things I work on, in different capacities, and all my clients come to me through referral. It's just
Yeah.
like that. It's all word of mouth. It's all in my network and almost like exclusively. I would say there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that come through that are new, but it usually doesn't feel like it's an inspired yes. Oftentimes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I love that. It's so
yeah,
interesting too, because it's like oftentimes the fourth lines that I work with, like there's a lot of like hesitancy to like go do the coffee dates. They're like, no, I have to work. Right. Like I'm not allowed to go to this thing. to meet these people or to hang out. And I'm like, no, but that is the work for a fourth line. The fourth line is
Yeah,
supposed to be cultivating and deepening those relationships and like having fun doing that. Like that is the most beneficial work you can do as a fourth line.
totally.
Yeah.
That's so
So when
fun.
it's like, no, I have to work on this thing. No, go play with your friends. So, um, yeah. And then the fifth line is here to be the heretic, the messenger, the problem solver. We are really, I'm saying we because I'm a fifth line of as a 5-1, like I said. So fifth lines, you're here to have an answer, be a problem solver. Like, what are your people coming to you asking about? Like, you have the answer. You're very practical in your wisdom and your step by step. Like, you're often here to help solve problems, and you're a messenger. So, oftentimes with fifth lines, and the human design term for that is the heretic, because you can be burned at the stake for what you believe, for what you're sharing, for what you're universalizing as a fifth line. So you're here to share a message, you're here to share it broadly. And you, unlike the fourth line, are not here to work with friends or deep connections or come through referrals. You are here for strangers. So that's just like a fun, interesting thing to look at. If you're going to a whole bunch of networking things and you're going and playing with friends and that's not really quote unquote working for you, what can you step into from a messaging perspective as a fifth line? And then the six lines are the role models. You're the leaders. The six lines go through three distinct phases of life. So it's 0 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 plus. And what we kind of notice in those three distinct phases is 0 to 30, you're acting more as a third line. You're in that trial and error phase of your life. And then around your Saturn return, you move quote unquote up to the roof, which is a very human design term. And that's like, okay, you've done the trial and erroring, and now you're in this energy of seeing further and getting really good at your craft. And being like the wise person on the hill that people come to for advice is more what comes up at around like 50 plus. So you have these three really distinct phases. And whenever I talk to six lines that are like post Saturn return, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, like something shifted. I've changed so much since my Saturn return. I've like not even in the same industry, or I got a divorce before I even, turned 30. Things like that show up as drastic life changes for six lines. So
Amazing.
the profile is going to be a combination of two of those numbers, and you can really play with, how can I lean into that even further? And likely you're actually going to find that your like friends, you're going to gravitate not necessarily towards people of your same energy type, like a projector, reflector, manifesting generator. You're going to actually notice you tend to be friends with people that have similar profile lines as you, because you see the world in very similar ways.
That's cool. I feel this like similarly. I have a friend who's from Japan, and we're always like, wow, you're like I'm like, I tell her, you're the Japanese version of me. Like,
I love
and
that.
and sure enough, when I looked at her chart, we have almost identical charts. You were both MGs, we're both 2/4s. We both have the same, centers lined up. I mean, very few things are off. And so it's really funny
Yeah.
because I was like, wow, I feel like we just get each other immediately. And I also have noticed, I think especially in like romantic relationships, for me at least, is that I find people who are complete opposites of me, who have like a
Mm.
totally different puzzle piece. Um,
Yeah.
I tend to like projectors and manifestors. but yes.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
From an energy perspective, it's like what you're calling in, what you bring to the table, what they bring to the table. Oh, it's so fun to
Yeah.
look at romantic relationships like that. Like my husband and I'm a 5-1 projector. He's a 5-1 emotional generator. And so just like even looking at the depths of behind like our cognition, for example, like we have the same motivation, we have the same view. Like when you look at deeper layers, we align on all of that, but on the surface, we're very different from our centers.
It's so cool. So let's talk a little bit about the 9 centers, because I think, for people who are listening, and this is kind of hard to explain without the visuals, but for
Yeah.
people who are listening, we'll include, a link to Lauren's website. You could take a look at the design centers and how they look like in human design, or get a reading with her. But if you could talk about the different centers and why they're important for people to pay attention to, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. This is so fun. So when you pull your human design body graph, if this is the first time you're looking at it, you're like, why does this look like a children's like drawing assignment? Like there's colors and there's shapes and there's like, so we're talking about the shapes here. So there are 9 centers or energy functions within the body graph. And so if we start from the very top of the head, we're going to that's your head center, quote unquote head center, right? And it's also your what we call your inspiration function. So we have your inspiration function. Then we have the triangle below that, which is your ajna center or your conceptualization function. Below that, around the throat, we have your throat center or your communication and manifestation function. Then we have your G center, which is right below that, that diamond in the center. And that is your identity, love, and direction function. Then that little triangle over to the right is your heart center or willpower function. Next to that, the triangle on the right, we have your emotional solar plexus, your solar plexus or your emotional function. I know I'm going through these quickly and I will get to like why they're important in a moment. Just like if you're tracking, you could be like, oh, okay, this is what they mean. That square in the middle is what we call your sacral center, and that is your life force, motor energy function. The triangle on the left of that is your spleen or your splenic function or your instinctive knowing function. So intuition lives there. And then at the very bottom of that square, we call it the root center or the stress, adrenaline, pressure function. So again, they have names, but they also have functions of the energy that operates from these spaces. And what I think is really cool to look at is when you look at your specific body graph, you're going to have some centers that are colored in and some centers that are white or not colored in. So when a center is colored in, we call those defined. So those are defined energy centers or functions. When a center is defined in your body graph, when it's colored in, you are generating the energy of that function within your body and you're pushing it out into the world. That energy is really consistent for you. It's available to you. It's a strength of yours. And it's often what other people are kind of like looking to you for is the function or the energy that you naturally bring to the table. When you have an undefined center or function, so it's white in the body graph, that's where you're bringing that energy is not consistent for you. You don't generate it within your body and push it out to the world. You're open there. You're bringing energy in from the outside world and you're amplifying it. And that can be in a shadow form of like falling victim to it, being distracted by it, or it can be in wisdom form, like you're getting wise. It's where you're here to go to school in this lifetime. It's where you're here to learn lessons and can lead from that place and guide from that place based off of the lessons that you've experienced. You can also sell really beautifully from your openness. So that's like in a nutshell, like what those functions represent, the energy within them, whether you have it defined, you're generating it within your body and pushing it out into the world. It's what you bring to the table essentially. And then when it's undefined or open, where energy is coming through you, you're learning lessons in this lifetime. You can sell from this place and you can also lead from this place.
I love that. Okay.
So we all have like different centers, defined, undefined, right? So one of the things that makes me a self-projected projector is the combination of my defined centers. And what I naturally bring to the table. What makes Yasmin a manifesting generator is her combination of defined centers and what she brings to the table. So it's just being able to look at like the depths of that and seeing how beautifully unique you are and how you can leverage that in your life.
It's so great. I mean, I think also one thing, it's funny because I've done some light readings for people over the years, and people always ask like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is open. Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing?" And I always want to say is it's not a bad or good thing. It's just that one is experiencing reality very differently based on their chart, and that's
Yeah,
probably what each person needs for their lifetime, right? Like that's
absolutely.
right. So that's one thing
Yeah.
I just feel like that's come up so much. It's like, oh, I'm open. I'm quite open. You
Hmm.
feel free to also talk about my chart, but I'm quite open. So I
Yeah.
do take in a lot of other people's energies, and to me, it feels like what a amazing gift that is because I can really feel people. I can really
Yeah.
get a sense of what's going on within them, especially since I have quite an open emotional center. So if you want to
Yeah.
speak to that, like what that means.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so um, about 50% of the population has emotional authority or a defined emotional solar plexus. So that triangle on the bottom right. And so what that means is those people are generating the energy of emotions within their body and they're pushing them out into the world. They're riding a consistent emotional wave. So the other 50% of us who have any other type of authority are undefined, or that center is white for us, right? So that means that the energy of emotions are inconsistent for us. We're taking in and amplifying the energy of emotions. This is like at an energetic level what an empath is, right? You're taking on the energy of emotions from other people. And so, Yasmin, you have this undefined, you're that natural empath. So am I, which is so interesting because in your chart, it's actually could be one of your biggest, shadows or distractions if you didn't pay attention to it. And that is kind of like avoiding confrontations, being reactive, like being, like you have to fix everyone else's feelings because you don't want to fix them. That's like the low expression of experiencing that center as undefined. But in the high expression, in the wisdom potential, it's being able to say, hey, is this my emotion like that I'm feeling in my body? Who does this belong to? Knowing when it's like emotionally healthy to have a confrontation or not, being an observer of emotions and watching the waves in other people versus getting kind of sucked into an emotional experience with other people. And not making decisions from an emotional place. So there's like that not self, that distraction place of like, oh gosh, you're getting, taken in with the wave for other people. And then there's the wisdom of like, hey, wait a minute, like that's not mine. And I'm not, I don't need to fix that. They're having their own experience. And also I can be really empathetic and watch kind of what's happening, what's occurring.
Yep.
Does that resonate with your experience?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when I was younger, I definitely couldn't discern, what was mine, what was another
Same.
person's. I mean, even I would say fairly recently, maybe like in,
Yeah.
the last 5 years. But once I became very aware of my mood versus another person's mood, because I noticed, especially on my own, I don't have swings of emotions. I'm
Yeah.
actually quite balanced. I have a very
Well,
tranquil inner world.
which is
And
correct for you. That's aligned with your
right?
design.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's so interesting. And so it's funny because when sometimes like really big emotions come through, it's almost always, another person's in the room or someone that I've connected with. So now I'm aware. Even when I go for a walk,
Mhm.
I notice sometimes my emotions can shift seemingly out of nowhere for no reason. There's no, there's nothing. There's nothing about it. And
Yeah.
so I've done a lot of my own clearing of other people's emotions. And I always ask myself this question first, like, is this mine or is this someone else's? If this is not mine, then I don't actually really need to think about it or work through it. And so I really loved knowing that about my emotional world. And then also for people that have it defined, I think it's good for them to know how they impact rooms and impact people with it open,
Mhm.
right? It's like there needs to be some level of responsibility for someone's mood. If I, for example, had it defined and I knew that my business partner had it open, I would try to sort out my mood before going to that person, knowing that I have this pushing out energy into spaces, right? So that's something I've
Absolutely.
just been noticing.
Yeah, and what I love to look at it too of like family dynamics, right? So if we look at like when you like what household were you raised in? So if I look at my parents, both of them are emotionally defined and I'm not defined. So I'm constantly taking in this energy of emotionality, not recognizing that, oh, wait, this is not mine. Then separating and being like, wait, but I'm really used to that energy being a part of my life. So going for partners or situations that would create that emotionality in my life. So like being able to look at the patterns that you've kind of taken on as yours that aren't actually truly a part of you has
Right.
been really eye-opening.
Right, right. I'm always telling people with open emotional centers, get some Euro spray from Mount Shasta. Clear
Yeah,
the
there we go.
space.
Exactly.
But that makes sense too. Like what we grow up with, we like are so familiar with. So we seek out,
Mhm.
partners and friendships really that that are similar. So keep going. I know that there's so much more to talk about with these defined
Yeah.
centers, but yeah.
There is so much, and one of the things that I love about human design is like really the depth in which you can go to all of these places. So it's like kind of hard to choose where you want to go with this. But so if we can look at like what is great about us. Because I know you said like, wait, is this good or this bad? Once people have openness and it's like, oh no, like that's where you're here to go to school in this lifetime. That's where you have this amazing opportunity. And also with your definition, like that is what you like bring to the table. That is what you're likely going to be like recognized for. Opportunities are going to come to you about. So it's really like looking at what is the highest expression of your design in each of these areas and elements, and where can you like move yourself towards embodying that highest expression. So if you're looking at, that design, that wisdom potential of the undefined emotional center, for example, it's like being able to be like emotionally healthy. Kind of like ask yourself, like, where am I with that emotional health? Like, do I get sucked in or do I not get sucked in? Okay, I get sucked in. Where do I get sucked in? Is it when somebody in my life is having a like not great day and I want to fix it and make it better so that I don't feel it? Ooh, interesting. And then we're creating awareness, because human design is a brilliant awareness tool. We're creating awareness of like our patterns that are not necessarily of our highest expression. When we can tap into the highest expression and we know, okay, hey, as an MG, I'm here to be deeply satisfied and peaceful. And here are the things that are keeping me out of, satisfaction or, disturbing my peace. We can really create clear boundaries around that to operate as our highest self, to get into that satisfaction and peace. As a projector, mine is success. And so if I'm noticing, hey, I'm feeling really bitter, we get to look at the low expressions of the centers and be like, hey, what situations are creating that bitterness for me? Or where am I showing up and not in my most optimal self that I can move towards feeling successful? What would make me feel
Mm.
successful? So I think there's just like a really powerful conversation with each one of these centers to dive deep into what's the highest expression? Where am I maybe acting from a pattern or a shadow or a not self that's leading me to my not self theme, which would be bitterness, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah,
anger,
it's fascinating.
frustration, disappointment.
What about maybe we could talk about one more center before we move on, but
Yeah.
like I feel like the ego center,
Yeah.
or yeah, I think the ego center is one that a lot of people like kind of have to know about. Not, it's not a nice to know, it's a must know.
It's a must know, yeah. So if you have that little triangle, the ego center, the willpower function, if you have that defined, you have consistent access to the energy of willpower. Like if you have that defined, you are able to like do what you say you're going to do, follow through, willpower, all of the things. And just so you know, as a superpower, if you do have this willpower function defined, people will think that they have the will to follow through in your presence. So they're going to tell you, yeah, I'll do that by X and X such as so and so date. But if they don't have that center defined, they don't have consistent access to that willpower. As soon as they disconnect from your energy, like whether or not they're going to be able to follow through with that is to be seen. So I always say for people with defined willpower functions, which is about 30% of the population, when people commit to you, like there often can be like a lot of upsetness and like people not following through, not doing the thing. I would give yourself a little bit of like grace with that and being like, okay, you're saying you're going to do this, get back to me in a couple of days. Say their emotional authority, they haven't actually decided they're going to do it. Like get back to me in a couple of days and like let me know if this is actually something you're, willing to commit to, because committing is an energy of defined will. It's not an energy of someone who does not have that center defined. So that's for my lovely defined willpower center function people who get so mad at the rest of the population for not following through.
So
Such a common
funny.
theme. Yeah. I also love like people who have defined willpower functions normally like in the online business space have some sort of program that has to do with like accountability. And I love that for them because they literally are bringing heart, bringing will, bringing accountability to the table. And most people don't have access to that. So fabulous. You've tapped into an energy center that you have really beautiful access to. So a majority of the population, however, does not have this center defined, colored in. It'll be white in your body graph. It's that little tiny triangle. And when we have this center undefined, the low expression of this, and one of the biggest distractions in the body graph, so one of the biggest things that's going to take you off course, is you will feel like you need to prove yourself. Not just prove yourself, but prove your worthiness to yourself and to other people. And this shows up like operating when you're in the mindset of, I need to prove myself. You're not going to act from your highest self. You're going to act from this like wounded ego place of like, I got to try and prove myself. Right. So we find ourselves, quote unquote, committing to a lot of things that are not actually correct for us from this need to prove our worthiness and our worth.
Yep, that's checks out.
Yeah, me
So
too.
so
Unfortunately, me too.
so
It's so interesting when you're deconditioning that center to look at like what do I think I want and why am I wanting it because I think I'm proving something to someone. Do I
mm,
actually even want this thing?
yeah, that's powerful. And then what does it mean if it's completely open versus having one of these gates on it?
Yeah, so mine's completely open, yours is completely open. And that is really this energy of being wise around who can deliver on a promise and who cannot. That's available if you have a gate activated as well. It's just there's a lot of openness and like this is one of the lessons you're here to learn in this lifetime. And when we see a gate or so like a little line off of the shape, that's what we call a conditioning receptor. So it's also a money receptor. We can market from that place too. But when we have it completely open, like it's all of them, right? Like you're going to experience kind of all of that energy versus maybe a certain flavor of that if you have one of the gates activated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about like the root center?
hmm So the root center is one of the motor functions. So of the body graph, all of those 9 functions, we have 3 kind of different um, energy styles of them, if you will. So we have the motor functions, and the motor functions are the sacral center, the root, the heart, and the emotional center. And those really operate in like an on off pulse. The sacral center is more of an on all the time, as long as you're doing the things that like feed it and bring you joy and bring you satisfaction. But the root is where adrenaline, stress, and pressure live. And so that center kind of works in an on and an off energy. And so when you have this center defined, you have consistent access to the energy of adrenaline, stress, and pressure. When you have
Mm,
this undefined, you have inconsistent access to the energy of adrenaline, stress, and pressure. And oftentimes, what I find when people have an undefined root is that you put all of this pressure on yourself. And it kind of creates this like almost pressure cooker vibe of like to picture an instant pot, right? Where you're like are putting all this pressure on yourself and like you aren't releasing the pressure valve. Like it's all like you're cooking in all of your pressure. Like I have to get this done by this time. I have to do this. I have to do that. Like there's a lot of pressure to do, to complete, to move forward, to get things off of your plate. Whereas when you have it undefined or when you have it defined or when you have this like wisdom potential of this energy, it's like as cliche as it sounds, like enjoying the journey. Things take as long as they take. And you're not able, like, you don't have to put all of that pressure on yourself. You don't have to let the pressure dictate your life. So you don't have to be in a hurry to be like free of this stress and this pressure, which is all self-imposed. It's also really interesting because there's a biology associated with like with each of the centers. They're representative in certain like organs and things. And your root center is your adrenals. So when you put all that pressure and stress and cortisol and it's all sitting in your body and then you have adrenal fatigue, it's like, oh, we can look and see kind of where that showed up.
mm, yeah. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. I have that totally
Yeah.
open, so,
Yeah.
um yeah,
That
go
with an
ahead.
undefined head, like how does that feel for you? Because the root and the head center are both the pressure functions. And so the head is the pressure to know and the root is the pressure to do. So like that pressure cooker feeling of I got to know the answer, I got to do the thing, I got to know the answer, I got to do the thing. And it's like when we feel that building up in our body, it's like that can be a lot on our system somatically and it gets to be released. And something else
Mm.
I'm kind of just noticing in your chart as a quad left, like all of your arrows around your head are pointing left. And so that means like your body really benefits from being active and releasing some of that cortisol. Does that feel true for you?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm so active and I have so much
Yeah.
energy. And I
Yeah,
think that
no doubt.
yeah, I have so much energy and I think what is interesting is I do a lot, but I also don't sort of spend a lot of time pushing things out. Like I like to get things done as soon as possible.
Mm,
So I'm
yeah.
really good at executing and kind of moving along. So for me, it works in my favor. I sort of have used that to work in my favor to like just execute and keep it moving.
Yeah. Just keep going, keep going. Well, but
Yeah.
you have that really beautiful defined sacral motor that all manifesting generators are going to have, which is like doing. And I love to look at this like generators and mani gens with that defined sacral, the way your sacral works. This is such a beautiful motor. It's like I think about it like a coal train engine. Like you are putting coal, which is things you love to do, things that bring you satisfaction, into that train engine. And you're just like, putting more energy and more energy on that engine, and you can keep going and going and going as long as you like love the things you're doing. The second you're doing something that like you feel like you have to or should, or giving your energy away to other people like out of obligation, it's like putting that water on that coal engine, and like the train is screeching to a halt, and all of a sudden you're like, I have no energy to do anything, because that's not the way your sacral works.
Right. Right. That
I
feels
see
right.
that as
And
like the biggest thing for generators and mani-gens. It's like giving their energy away to people, places, and things that are actually not correct for them because they feel a sense of obligation.
that's like the lifelong kind of, quest. Like, is this in
Mhm.
alignment or is this not?
Yes, you're right.
Um,
Exactly.
so I want to maybe do a little bit of a light reading on my chart just to give people a rooted
Yeah.
example and like a high level overview. I mean, as I think you are aware, we could probably spend like 5 hours talking about my
Yes.
chart, and we're only going to do it for 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
but it'll just
Beautiful.
be a quick sort of taste of what a reading is like.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, you can go so many places, and I know you've experimented for a while, but just like so people can kind of get a sense. The way that I would look at your chart, Yasmin, is like having that in front of me is overall, I would look at, okay, you're a manifesting generator. Not only are you a manifesting generator, but you're a pure manifesting generator. So, what does that mean? As a manifesting generator, you are here to be multi-passionate and efficient, and you move really, really quickly, and you're here to do work that you love to do. You're here to wake up in the day with a full tank of gas of energy, use it in satisfying ways throughout the day, and go to bed delightfully exhausted. The way that you're designed to move through the world is following your strategy. And for a manifesting generator, the strategy is to respond and then inform, meaning you're here to respond to life and have opportunities come to you versus thinking of things you want to do in your mind and then initiating from the mind. You're going to have more satisfaction when you're actually waiting for the world to bring you those opportunities, that your sacral, your gut response is going to go, like, yes, it's going to have a response to this is for me. And that's how you are going to bring that coal, that energy, and put it on the engine of being like, yes, this is what I have energy for. This is correct for me. This is a yes. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to do this. And it's going to lead to that deep satisfaction. What I find with manifesting generators who are here to kind of initiating is that's the fast track to frustration, because we think we need to do all of these things in order to get something when we're creating from our mind, but then we're running into roadblocks. And the ways that I like to describe this is like, if you are trying to push a boulder up a hill, but there's like a whole construction team just waiting by to like bulldoze that hill for you, that's what response is waiting for the bulldozer to come on, and like so you could just push that boulder instead of pushing it up a hill, which is more around initiation is pushing a boulder up a hill. Response is having that bulldozer team come in and be like, oh, okay, you could just tap that boulder and it could keep rolling. So looking for areas in your life where you are responding, where things are coming to you and you're saying yes, versus where you think you need to initiate. So that's like the first part of kind of what I would say. Because you have an undefined head and ajna center, I would actually invite in some, when you do have those ideas of those things that you want to initiate, especially with that gate 11, the gate of ideas, I would have somewhere that you have like a notebook or a notes app on your phone or sticky notes of like things you want to initiate, right? Like it's a place where the ideas and the initiations live, that you can then go take them down at a later time once you've been given an opportunity to respond. Does that resonate for you?
Oh yeah, it feels like I've sort of worked on stuff, and then like I'll give you an example. I wrote a short film when
Mhm.
I was in New York, and when I moved to California, I met this guy at a birthday party and told him about my
Mhm.
my short, and I sent it to him, and then all of a sudden he said, "You know what? I'm going to help you make this movie," and we did. We went on to get nominated for 8 film festivals and got 2 audience awards. But it was just sort of like this like wild, like I never thought in a million years that I would make them. It was a fantastical short film. It's like a Pan's Labyrinth take,
I
you
love
know,
that.
And so, yeah, anyways, it's stuff like that where it's just, and it happens all the time where I'll just show up to an event, I'll meet someone, and then they will like come knocking on my door to like help me finish my dream. So
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
love that, which is so fourth line too, right? It's like you've got that fourth line profile, which is like the people are there for you to help you do the thing.
yep, yep. Even,
It
by the way, even this
That's so awesome.
podcast was introduced to them, to the founders of Hakawati by a friend. And this also happened very organically. I set the intention, and my podcast network looked for me.
So cool. Well, I just to even like take us even down even deeper, right? Of not just like type, strategy, authority, profile lines, but like your conscious sun. So where the sun was at the time of your birth was in gate 2, which is, when we look at it, that's the gate of the direction of the self. And what we say in like the gate description of that is the director. Like it's literally the director, the driver, the direction, the vision. So like you're literally talking about, you know, the direction, writing a short story, like the vision. And that is all a part of what you are here to do as a gate to conscious sun. And your network is helping make that happen as a fourth line unconsciously.
So cool. So
It's
cool.
the best. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, with that conscious sun in gate 2, one of the things that I love to look at is Gene Keys is like a sister system of human design, which basically takes those gates, those traits, those little line activations, and it elaborates them on them even further. And one of the things that the Gene Keys does is it looks at the low expression, the gift, and then the city, the high expression of each of these gates. So from the gift or the city of gate 2, your gift is orientation. And the city is unity. It's divine logic. It's returning to the one. And so there's this really beautiful energy of like finding unity that you would naturally bring to any place or space and orient a vision.
That's beautiful.
So I
That's
just
that's really
you're
cool.
expressing that.
We had Richard Rudd on the show. Oh my gosh, maybe 2 years ago
I
now.
love him.
And yeah, he did a whole kind of reading on, I think I have like the 1, 2, and the 7, 13 as like my main gates.
Yes.
But yeah, and you were also mentioning right before we started something about the 1, 8 as a gate that is interesting, and how they all kind of work together.
Yeah. So when I look at your design, we have the defined centers and the undefined centers. So, being a manifesting generator whose strategy is to respond, whose authority is sacral, meaning the way you make decisions is right? When things are a yes and when things are a no, following that gut response. And the thing that makes you that is those 2 channels within your design. So you have the 214 and the 8-1, the 1-8. And the energy of those, and I love to do human design for a business. I went through the International Human Design School through their BG5 program, which is like all about business consulting and how you actually apply this. I'm a 5th line, right? I like the application. I like the practical steps, the practical solutions. So for you, you have the 14-2, which is like a part of any business, is how do you bring in the resource and then have the vision for where does the money go? 14 being resources, people, things, opportunities, like bringing that into you. And then this 2, gate 2, which is again your conscious sun, which we just talked about, that direction of like, okay, the direction, the vision, where are the resources going? What do we need them for? What do we need the money for? What do we need the people for? What do we need the time for? What do we need the space for? So you're able to really beautifully funnel in like the resource to the vision, and then up through that G center is the 1-8, which is the 1 being sales implementation and the 8 being public relations, like the marketing. So there's this like really beautiful strength that you have, these 2 strengths, which are, the vision and then the execution, the public relations, the marketing, and the vision and the resources.
So
Which is an
cool.
innate gift that you're going to bring to any business that you're a part of, any project that you're a part of.
I just want to make sure all my clients hear this.
Exactly.
I actually do feel that, I can see vision. I know how to execute. And it's been an interesting, experience for me to just kind of figure out how to get things done. I like have an inherent independent, I guess like inner intelligence on how to execute things. And it's interesting to know that from human design now. But Lauren, this is like endlessly entertaining and interesting for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the audience probably doesn't care that much anymore about my chart. So, but I really wanted to just give them an overview of what to expect from a reading and how much information you can really glean from this type of reading. And so we're going to wrap it up. But what sort of things, looking back on this journey of human design, and by the way, you articulated it so well. It's just so amazing to listen to you. But what sort of things have surprised you the most on this journey?
Oh my gosh. I'm like surprised endlessly and like even being called like an expert in this is like, ooh, like that even makes me go, ooh, because I've been studying the system for 7 years and like I feel like I could study it for the rest of my life. And there will like always be more that I'm learning and exploring and studying. Like I had a teacher tell me in like the human design school, she's like, "Oh, you probably have like a rough time like handling raw meat." I'm like, "How is that in my chart? Like, what are you talking about?" So like so there's little things like that just like the depth of the knowledge is so profound and I will forever be a student. And then also there's this really beautiful like surprising element of like people express their charts without having to know anything about it. Like I sit with countless people that are just like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is what and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's perfect. That's like so in alignment with your design." And they had no idea. And then there's just like these little tweaks that they get to step into and activate and move from that allows them to be even more of themselves. Because what I love about design is that it's not necessarily being like, you have to do this to be your best self. It's like, you don't have to do all this other stuff you think you need to do because that's not you. That's not who you're designed to be. So those are some of the things that I'm just like absolutely obsessed with. My most recent area of study has been around the variables or the arrows around your head in the human design chart when you pull it, and just like the depth of your cognition, the way your brain works, the what your body needs to thrive and survive. Like those new layers have been endlessly surprising and just it's a glorious, glorious system.
It's amazing. And it's so cool to hear your take on it too. So I'm just so grateful that we got a chance to drop in. And thank you so much for taking Sarah's spot and on such
Yeah.
short
Thanks,
notice.
Sarah.
And also just it's all meant to be, right? And so where
Yeah.
can people find you and learn more about you?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun to play. You can find me on my website at laurenarmstrong.com. If you have never pulled your chart before, you can do it there on my site, laurenarmstrong.com/human design chart. And I even give you like the depth of the information behind the arrows, which not a lot of free software does. So if you haven't grabbed that before, go grab it. And yeah, you can find out more information about working with me there and also on Instagram at Lauren E. Armstrong _ is where I play most often.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. Really, really appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
today.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me play with your chart and like see you as you were expressing. It's just like the most fun.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for playing with me too. It's so fun for me. So, for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learn about human design and how you can learn more about your chart with Lauren Armstrong. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again. What would you like to see change in your life? And what is the biggest obstacle that you're facing now? I run a 5-week program at the Inner Knowing School for serious individuals who are ready to take the next step in their personal and professional lives. I will personally be coaching a small group of individuals, a number of practical tools and frameworks for creating an intuition practice and for self-mastery. You can find more at theinnerknowingschool.com. I have a master's certification in intuition medicine, and I've condensed 10 plus years of experience and research navigating how to harness your energy and intuition in an easy to access live curated course. Now, as someone who's helped countless creatives, entrepreneurs, and many who are just plain stuck, open doors of possibility they never thought existed, I've seen this strategy transform people's inner states and external reality. And the best part is that you'll skyrocket your output and unlock your creative genius. I'll work with you weekly live to overcome your limiting beliefs and show you how to manage your energy instead of your time. I'll teach you how to create clarity, processes, develop your intuition based on some of the top tools and frameworks that I've developed. And you'll get access to guided meditations and visualizations not available anywhere else. This method is so effective that even if you don't have that much time, or if you think that you might not be ready, this will work for you. You can check out the link in the show notes to join the waiting list, and you can check out what past clients had to say about the program. Wishing you all many blessings ahead.